Thank you, Brad, and thank you, John, for those informative and truly, truly inspiring comments about those accomplished scouts and scout volunteers. It makes me ever more confident in the future of scouting, knowing we have leaders like you. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Our guest of honor tonight has scouting DNA in his blood, literally. His parents met when his dad was working at a Boy Scout camp. His father was the first of 3 generations of Eagle Scouts in the family and served as a professional scouter for almost 3 decades. Awarded his Eagle Scout badge in 1965 at Troop 20 in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Our guest has lived a life based on the principles of the Scout Oath and Scout law that he learned as a youth. After graduating from Huntsville High School in Huntsville, Texas, he enrolled in the University of Texas to major in engineering. He became a member of Alpha Phi Omega fraternity, which until 1968 only accepted Boy Scouts as members. Instead of throwing parties, his fraternity brothers spent their time wheeling disabled students around campus. One fraternity brother said, "We were kind of nerds, and Rex was one of those guys that just gave you a great feeling." He was in school for a purpose. And when he was ready to leave, he said he was going to work for Exxon, and the fraternity brother said, "He seems like an Exxon sort of guy." After graduating from the University of Texas with a degree in civil engineering, he joined Exxon in 1975, worked his way up through the company, and after they merged with Mobil, he was named chairman and CEO in the year 2006. With 4 sons, he has served as a Cub Scout leader, assistant scout master, and saw his youngest son become the 3rd generation of his family to become an Eagle Scout. He even brought his scouting training to Exxon. The author of a book, who wrote a book about his company, said that this leader and executive created a merit badge-like system where employees can earn coins for skills like teamwork and leadership. Service to scouting has been a major calling for Rex. He has served on the board of directors of the Boy Scouts of America and as national president from 2010 to 2012. He was awarded the Silver Buffalo, the highest award for service to scouting, in the year 2010. In a speech to the Sam Houston Area Council, our guest said that scouting and his church were the 2 most important influences in his life as a youth. He said that all he has learned about leadership and values were grounded in his scouting experience. The former Chief Scout Executive, Robert Mazuka, identified our guest as a corporate giant who understands the value of a workforce that has integrity and a workforce that has the capacity for leadership. Another executive said that to understand Rex, you have to understand scouting. His many accomplishments are just too many to count and too many to enumerate here in our short time together, but I can tell you that on his resume, he still has Eagle Scout. Enough said. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you our special guest and Eagle Scout, Rex W. Tillerson.
Thank you, David, and thank you for hosting tonight's event and for all the support Dominion gives to scouting here in the Richmond area. It truly is a pleasure for me to be here with you tonight and to see so many supporters of scouting coming together tonight, and so we can talk a little bit about why this is so important. And I want to talk to you a little bit about my experience. You heard a little background of scouting in my life, but then I want to talk to you about why the community of Richmond needs scouting and why the state of Virginia needs scouting and why our country needs scouting, maybe today more than ever. So as you heard, I kind of grew up with Boy Scouting all around me. I joined Scouts as a Cub Scout when I was 8 years old. That was the youngest age you could join, and I've been a registered Scout ever since, so 56 years now as a Boy Scout. I was blessed to be able to join a wonderful scout troop in Stillwater, Oklahoma with a scoutmaster that was just the kind you dream of. Of course, he's the only scoutmaster I ever had, so he is the dream, and I know there are thousands and thousands of scoutmasters that are just like my scoutmaster, L.E. Tinker. Called him Tink. But in my troop, it was a very active troop. I was able to earn my God and Country Award, earn my Eagle Scout rank, and then had opportunities in my exploring posts to go to 2 high adventure bases, what today is Northern Tier, at the time was called the Charles L. Somers Canoe Base in the boundary waters of Canada. I made a trek to Philmont with my buddies when I was in high school, and then went to the 1969 National Jamboree in Farragut State Park, Idaho. First time I ever took an airplane ride was with the Boy Scouts. Little did I know I'd live on one eventually one day. So you think about that period of time, from the time I was 8 years old until I was 18 years old, and all the things that happened to me in that 10-year period. And those are the most formative years of a young person's life, 8 to 18. However you're going to turn out, by the time you're 18 years old, that's pretty well it. Now, I'm not saying that people can't change, and people do change, but generally once you get to be 18 years old, you're kind of the adult you're going to be. And if traumatic things happen to you, you might change. But by and large, psychologists and sociologists know that you're pretty well done. So these are the years in which we want to capture these young people, because this is when we can impact how they're going to turn out. And for me, it didn't dawn on me that scouting had made me who I was until several years later. You know, when I was in that program for 10 years, I was just having a lot of fun and loving every minute of it, enjoying the advancement, enjoying all these opportunities to go camping and these high adventure activities, worked on camp staff. I loved spending all summer long at summer camp as a counselor and teaching other young kids how to do things. But I went to work for Exxon, and along about the time I was in my early 30s, I was beginning to get my first early management assignments, low-level manager, managing a few people in the organization, and things were moving along pretty well for me, and I seemed to be getting additional opportunities with greater responsibility. And you start doing those early management deals they have you do, 360 awareness, understanding who you are and how you behave. And you begin to ask yourself, at least I asked myself, so why is this happening to me? Because I was a pretty average person coming out of college. There was nothing special about me, just pretty average. And I began to examine myself and, my leadership style, my management style, and where did all this come from? And I realized then all of this came from my scouting experience. And so when I say to people, everything I learned about leadership, I learned in the Boy Scouts of America, that is absolutely true. I have not been to a leadership training, management training, and sorry to all you great universities that do this stuff, and I've been to yours too. I've never learned anything different, anything new. I learned it all as a Boy Scout. And what I learned first as a Boy Scout is I learned how to be a follower. Because one of the important elements of becoming a great leader or good leader is to first understand followership. If you don't understand followership, it's very difficult to be a good leader. And you learn followership in Boy Scouts right away, because you come in and you're all of a sudden part of the patrol system. In Boy Scouts, we're set up with patrols, generally 8 boys. They're led by one of the boys, and you better first learn how to follow. And then before too long, you're going to get your chance to be the leader of the patrol. And generally, troops try to make that happen within a year. So all of a sudden, now you're maybe 12 years old, and you're the leader. And sometimes the boys are older than you are. So how do you get boys that are older than you to do what you want them to do? And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But you get a lot of practice in working with your peers and working with people that are older than you, boys that are older than you, and in working with great adult leadership. And all of it happens in a very, very safe, controlled atmosphere in which it's okay if it doesn't work out. We'll go back and we'll try it a different way. So all of the early leadership training I got and everything that I use still today, I learned in Boy Scouting. Now, the second important thing that I realized when I was going through this self-examination in my early 30s was, where'd these values come from? It just was, a lot of things were just natural to me. Honesty, trustworthiness, loyalty. I'm extremely loyal to the company. I was extremely loyal to them from the day I walked through the door. Where'd that come from? Well, it all came from my scouting value system. And so what we're really about in this business of scouting is taking young people at those formative years, and we hope we can keep them for 10 years. 8 to 18, that is a home run in our business. But I can tell you, if we only get them for a few years, we will have an impact on them, and it will last. I can't tell you how many people I travel around the country, even the world, and I run into people, and they'll find out I'm involved in scouting, and they'll say, yeah, I was a Cub Scout. I never did join Boy Scouts, but I was a Cub Scout. And then they will tell me stories of when they were a Cub Scout in their den with their den mother, or in their pack, or their Pine Wood Derby race, or their Blue and Gold Banquet. They still remember it. And they still remember the Cub Scout motto, do your best. It stuck with them. So we only have to capture young people at that very, very impressionable, formidable time. And those who move on to Boy Scouting, they can still recite the Scout Oath, they can still recite the Scout Law. So that is what we do. We create a value system in young people at the time when they are most accepting to it. That's when we need them. That's what we do. And the product that we produce in the Boy Scouts of America are good citizens, good people, the kind of people you want in your neighborhood, the kind of people you want in your community, the kind of people you want as leaders in your community. Not everybody's going to be a leader, and that's why it's good to know good followership too. But that's what you get for this. So how do we do that? How do we do that? Well, we don't put a sign out and say, sign up here for character building, because we don't have many kids that want to sign up for character building. They want to sign up for fun. And so we have to package this value system into a delivery program. And the delivery program is all the things I remember as a scout. It was troop meetings, it was advancement, merit badges, monthly campouts, summer camp in the summertime, looking forward to getting to the age that I could go to high adventure bases. It was the excitement of being with my buddies in the scout troop every week, because I knew we were going to have a good time. I knew we were going to have fun, and we were going to learn something new. And at every scout meeting, at every camp out, no matter what, we always started by standing up, putting our hand up, and reciting the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. And it's just through that constant repetition that it becomes part of who you are. And I tell young people, and this has been true for me, I tell them, you know, when you get to be a teenager, you're going to encounter a lot of pressures on you. A lot of things are going to come at you. A lot of things that are not good are going to come at you. A lot of people are going to be wanting you to do things that are not good for you. And what I tell them to do is, you remember that Scout Oath. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and country, do my duty to help other people, and do my duty to myself. And all three of those are important: duty to God and country, duty to others, duty to self. You take those three pillars of the Scout Oath and you make yourself a three-legged stool. Make it about this high, about like this. And you climb up on that stool while all this stuff is coming at you. And then you take that Scout Law: trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent. You make yourself a handrail out of that Scout Law, and you stand on that three-legged stool, and you grab that handrail with both hands, and you hang on. And anytime somebody wants you to do something that you're not sure about, you just test it against that Scout Oath and Scout Law. And I promise you, you're going to get the right answer every single time. That has been true for me my entire life. It's true in my business life. It's true when I travel to countries all over the world. I deal with a lot of heads of state. I deal with countries and people that don't share our value systems. They certainly don't share our standards of ethics. But what I have found to be universally true, no matter who I've dealt with, they do respect integrity. They respect someone that means what they say says what they mean, and understands what a commitment means. And that's what we're trying to teach young people. You mean it when you say it and you mean it, and it's a commitment you've made, that this is how I'm going to be. And if you stick with that, you can get through anything. Well, that's what we do. We try to instill that into young people. Now, we have to keep scouting relevant. The out of doors is still incredibly important to our program, because there's something about when you take a young person and you put them in the out of doors, and you get them away from home, and you get them away from all the distractions of daily life, and you put them in touch with this great outdoors, particularly at nighttime when the sky lights up with stars, something magical happens. It's when a young person first becomes aware that there's something bigger out there than them. And what we do through the outdoor experience is help them understand that and explore it. Explore it through activities with each other, explore it through activities on their own. And throughout all of that, in the background is this constant drumbeat of these values. On my honor, on my honor. You know, those are words we don't hear a lot. Our youth certainly don't hear them a lot today. They're not common in our lexicon. On my honor. Yes, most young people today, you say, on my honor, what does that mean? They probably can't tell you what on my honor means. So we start that at a very young age, very early age, putting these words into their lexicon and helping them understand what they mean. Through the outdoor experience, through the camping experience, there's nothing like going out on a Friday night and setting up camp in a torrential rainstorm to build character. There's nothing like sending a troop out to camp in February to earn their Polar Bear Award. So we deliver values, we deliver leadership training, we build self-confidence, and we build self-esteem. That's what we do from 8 to 18. Now, as a business person, these are the kind of people you want. These are the kind of people you want to hire. I tell a lot of business gatherings I talk to, and people that may be starting up business, or if you have a business and you don't have a real well thought out, solid business practices policy, code of conduct for your employees, I tell them, go get a Boy Scout handbook and open it up to the front page, and you'll find the Scout law. I said, everything you need for a business practice policy is right there. Who would not want employees that are trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty? Who wouldn't want employees with those values? Values that represent you, values in how they deal with one another, values in how they deal with their customers. Who wouldn't want employees with that set of values? That's what we produce. And as I know many of you know, you get job applications, and I was a campus recruiter for a number of years earlier in my career with Exxon. I'd get those applications, and you know, and I'm not knocking all these other activities that kids can do. I played sports in high school and junior high, but I've never seen an job application where somebody put, I was the starting quarterback on my high school team, or I was the starting shortstop and batted .250 on the high school baseball team. But I've sure seen them where it says I'm an Eagle Scout, or I was the senior patrol leader in my troop. And I can tell you when those applications come in, they go on a different stack, because I already know where I'm going to start that conversation. I'm going to have a lot longer conversation with the other person. Doesn't mean they won't have good values, but I already know where this person's grounded. And I can tell you, you'll hear that story from a lot of employers. So we're instilling values, we're instilling leadership skills, building self-confidence, building self-esteem, so that you, your children, and your grandchildren are going to have great neighbors in the community. And what we know is, while we aspire for all these kids to earn the Eagle Award, as you know, less than 3%, 4% of them ever get there. But what we know is if they spend a little time in scouting, It doesn't matter whether they grow up to be a carpenter, a plumber, electrician, fireman, policeman, school teacher, mayor of the community, chairman and CEO of a large corporation, or president of the United States. What I know is they're going to be better citizens because we teach citizenship. We teach servant leadership. Do a good turn daily. How different would every community be if everyone just did a good turn daily? Just do something for somebody else without being asked, without expecting anything, just did it. That's what we teach. Servant leadership. So this is what you get when you make an investment in scouting. People ask me a lot of times why I do this and why do you give it this much time? And when I was serving as the national president from 2010 to 2012, I'd get that question a lot from some of my counterparts. Who'd say, man, you sure are having to spend a lot of time on that. You got a regular job. And I said, yeah, I do. And I usually gave the same answer, well, it's important to the youth of our country. It's important to, to what I feel our young people need. And I was sitting at our annual meeting, which Boy Scouts have once a year. We have 2 breakfasts at those annual meetings. One morning we have a duty to God breakfast, where the whole program is about duty to God. The next morning we have a duty to country breakfast, duty to country. So I'm sitting at the duty to God breakfast in 2010 as I'd become the national president. And our speaker that morning, was a retired bishop of the Methodist Church, Will Willimon. I'm sure many of you people in the room probably know Will Willimon or know of him. I'd been reading Will Willimon's books for a long time. I thought he was probably dead. And lo and behold, he's very much alive. Eagle Scout Will Willimon. So Will Willimon gets up and he's telling the story about his first experience as a Boy Scout, brand new, 11-year-old, tenderfoot, had joined the troop, and they were going out on their first weekend camp-out, monthly camp-out with the troop. The scoutmaster met with his little brand new tenderfoot patrol of boys. They were all brand new. And he said, now boys, we'll meet after school, and we'll have all our stuff packed up, and we're going to drive out to where we're going to camp, and because it's going to be late, it's going to get dark pretty quick, so we always have something that's real easy to cook for dinner that night. So bring something like stew or, something that's real quick that you can heat up, soup, something like that, because we won't have a lot of time before it gets dark. So Will said they all piled into the vehicles, and they drove out to where they were camping out, and they set their camp up, and they built their fires, and all the little tenderfoot scouts, they had their stew and beans and weenies. They took their cans of stew and beans and weenies, and they put them in the fire. Well, in a few minutes, cans of stew and beans and weenies started exploding everywhere. Scoutmaster comes running over to them. Boys, I'm sure he was afraid one of them was dead. Boys, what are you doing? You got to open the cans up before you put them in the fire. And Will said Scoutmaster had his neckerchief off. He's wiping beans and weenies off his face. And Will said, I looked up my Scoutmaster and I said, being a Scoutmaster is a really hard job. They must pay you a lot of money to do this. He said, my Scoutmaster looked down at me and said, son, they can't pay you enough money to do this. And no one would volunteer to do this. He said, son, I was put here to do this. I was put here to do this. And that's when the light went on in my head. I was put here to do this. I was put here to see the Boy Scouts of America have a second century that's bigger and better than the 100 million Americans who were Boy Scouts in the last century. And so I spend all of my discretionary time talking to people like you tonight. A lot of people are worried about the moral compass of our country, and they want to know what to do about it, and they don't know what to do about it. And our young people have so many distractions. A Kaiser Family Foundation study last year said 8 to 10-year-olds spend 8 hours a day in front of some kind of a screen. And for 11 years old, it's worse. and people are saying, I don't know what can I do? What can I do? This is what you can do. This is what you can do. You can make an investment in the Boy Scouts of America in your community, in Richmond, Virginia, and the surrounding area, in your state, and you will change the lives of young people. Right now that happens in a den, Cub Scout den, or Boy Scout unit every week. I know we got a lot of unit leaders out here in this audience tonight. I know when I became an assistant scoutmaster, they gave me a coin, and many of you I know have that same coin. It has the scout emblem and the Be Prepared motto on one side. The other side, though, it has these words. 100 years from now, no one will remember what kind of car I drove, what size house I lived in, or how much money was in my bank account. But the world may well be a different place because I made a difference in the life of one boy. Well, tonight, with your gifts, you can make a life in the difference of a lot of boys. You know, Will Rogers once said, there's only one problem with the Boy Scouts of America. There's not enough of them. And that's what we've got to do, is we've got to reach into our community and contact more of these young people, get them into this great movement, contact their parents so their parents understand there is not another youth-serving organization in our country that does what the Boy Scouts does. Yeah, you can learn a lot of things playing Little League Baseball. I did. You can learn a lot of things playing sports. You can learn a lot of things being members of other youth organizations. But no one does what we do. Produce great citizens, great members of your community. And this is how we change that moral compass. We won't change it, but they will. They will. And we owe it to them to prepare them to do that. So I really want to ask you tonight to make an investment in your community. Make an investment so that the daily operating needs of this council can be met. It takes money to do this. We're not any different than any other organization. You have operating expense needs that are near term that have to be met, that allows program materials to be delivered, it allows people to get out and contact these parents and these kids and organize new units and find chartering organizations. It takes money to invest in the infrastructure, the camps that create this wonderful outdoor experience where all of this magic happens. So it takes money for the capital campaign. And so I want to ask all of you to think about this as an investment in your community. You need scouting. Our country needs it more than ever. And I stand here as a product of scouting. I am who I am, and I am what I am because I'm a Boy Scout. And the reason I know that is there's not a reason in the world why a 64-year-old guy that's been now away from Boy Scouts for 50-plus years still remembers the words to the Scout Vesper that his Scoutmaster had us all sing every night around the campfire before we crawled in our sleeping bags. Softly falls the light of day as our campfire fades away. Silently, each scout should ask, have I done my daily task? Have I kept my honor bright? Can I guiltless sleep tonight? Have I done and have I dared everything to be prepared? Prepared for life, the Boy Scouts of America. Thank you all for being here. God bless you. God bless the Boy Scouts.